Everyone's got it. Now you can got it too. The fucking audacity. Now in a can.
Good evening, people. How are we doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters? Welcome to another Brews at 10. Thanks for joining me this evening. I'm your host, Lefty. Hope you're all well and good. We'll be kicking off very shortly. Thanks a lot for being here tonight. Good to see Octo and Bon Nakarizer in the chat. Hope you're both having a top evening. Thanks for joining me for a cup of Solidari-Tea tonight on the Brews at 10. Yeah, hit those buttons, people. If you can, please help spread the joy of the Brews at 10 across the old information superhighway. Yeah, please do hit thumbs up, share across your social media. Also, a quick plug, if you've not checked out recent video on, well, a topic I'm going to be going into in a bit more detail this evening. Starmer's austerity announcement, as it was yesterday. So I'll be going over the, excuse me one sec, I'll be going over the speech in a bit more detail. As well as this water hike, the latest in Palestine as well, and much more to come. Okay, I'll be right with you, people, just one moment. Okay, let's get going, people. Floor Snake, Wondergupta, great to see you both in the chat. Let us know how you're doing this evening. What's that? Solidari Floor Snake Bite. Floor Snake Bite. It's just cider-free Floor Snake Bite, also known as Speckled Hen. Whatever you're drinking tonight, here's to you, Solidari-Tea, Wondergupta, also wonderful to see you back again. Solidarity, comrades. Okay. Right, I'll get into this speech in a bit more detail. I won't go through the full press Q&A at the end of it, because I'm sure that the bulk of it is pretty bad enough. So let's get started with that. Dolores Caliborn, welcome to the chat. You're drinking lime and hot water and a tall glass of freedom. Well, cheers to that. Hope you're having a good evening as well. Right, I've got the clip lined up. I'll try not to pause too much. I'll talk over it more than I will stop it. Pause it, because we've got a few other things to get onto. So yeah, strap yourselves in, guys. Spoiler alerts. I don't know if you've missed this story over the last couple of days. The October budget is coming on swift wings to pack our livers out. That is we, the non-super rich, of course. Okay, Keith, what have you got? He's got jokes, unfortunately,
Morning.
as you're about to
and welcome.
be subject
Sunshine, no rain, no wind, probably tempting fate, but it's really good to see you all here, see familiar faces in this garden. So thank you so much for coming along this morning. When I stood on the steps of Downing Street, just over there 2 months ago, I promised
You
that
handpicked
this
the
government would serve
people who were
people
attended, by the
like
way,
you.
from people who had met on the campaign
Apprentices,
trail.
teachers, nurses, small business owners, firefighters, those serving our community and our country every day. I promised that we would get a grip on the problems that we face and that we would be judged by our actions, not by our words.
Oh, you certainly will,
I
Keith.
said before the election, and I say it again really clearly today, growth, and frankly by that I do mean wealth creation, is the #1 priority
For the already wealthy, of course.
And that's why in our first few weeks
Wealth
we've
creation.
set up the National Wealth Fund, because we want every person and every community to benefit. It's why we've unlocked planning decisions, because we're going to build 1.5 million new homes. It's why we set up Great British
Not
Energy,
social housing, of
create good
course.
jobs and cut people's bills. And it's why we ended the national strikes that have crippled our country for years. Because I defy anyone to tell me that you can grow the economy when people can't get to work because the transport system is broken, or can't return to work because they're stuck.
I'd probably defy you, Keith. And talking about bills going up, we'll be coming on to that after we've heard the rest of this. Stay strapped in, people.
Towards the change that people voted for, the change that I'm determined to deliver. But before the election, I also gave a warning. I said change would not happen overnight.
There was no way he was getting through this without saying the word deliver, of
At the heart
course.
of a structure. You can't just cover it up. You can't just tinker or rely on quick fixes. You have to overhaul the entire thing. Tackle it at root, even if it's harder work and takes more time. Because otherwise, what happens?
You'll do exactly the same as the Tories have been doing, only potentially worse.
Worse than before.
Worse,
You know
yes,
that.
Keith.
I know that.
Worse
and
than
that's
before.
why this project has always been about fixing the foundations of our country. But I have to be honest with you. Things are worse than we ever imagined. In the first few weeks, we discovered a £22 billion black hole in the public finances.
Bollocks. Stephen Flynn brought it up in Parliament God knows how many times before the election. That's absolute trash, Keith, and you know it. But he'll look directly down the lens and lie to the British public time and time again. What's he take us for?
Even last Wednesday, just last Wednesday, we found out that thanks to the last government's recklessness, we borrowed almost £5 billion more than the OBR expected in the last 3 months alone. That's not performative, that's fact. But as well as the things that we've discovered, we've also seen shocking scenes across the nation. A mindless minority of thugs who thought that they could get away with causing chaos, smashing up communities and terrifying minorities, vandalising and destroying people's property, even trying to set fire to a building with human beings inside it. And as if that wasn't... People displaying swastika tattoos, shouting racist slurs on our streets, Nazi salutes at the cenotaph. The cenotaph, the very place we honour those who gave their lives for this country, desecrating their memory under the pretence...
Is he going to say far right or racist at all in reference to these people?
Now they're learning that crime has consequences, that I won't tolerate a breakdown in law and order under any circumstances, and I will not listen to those who exploit grieving families and disrespect local communities. But these riots didn't happen in a vacuum. They exposed the state of our country, revealed a deeply unhealthy society, the cracks in our foundations laid bare.
You're talking about
by a decade of division,
cracks where racism creeps in.
Infected by a spiral of populism.
This is coming from an open Zionist, by the way, which is, yes, strap yourselves in, you might be shocked. That is a form of racism.
They offered the snake oil of populism, which led to more failure, round and round and round, stuck in the rut of the politics of performance. Now, I saw the beginning of that downward spiral firsthand back in 2011, when riots ripped through London and across the country. I was then Director of Public Prosecutions. And when I think back to that time...
He was Director of Public Prosecutions? Was he?
Because responding to those riots was hard.
I had no idea.
Of course it was.
I'll fancy that.
But dealing with the riots...
Well, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Much harder. Back in 2011, I didn't doubt that the courts could do what they needed to do. This time, to be honest with you, I genuinely didn't know. Let me tell you this, every day of that disorder, literally every day...
It was people who stood up, communities who stood up, Keith. It wasn't you. Didn't see you down there.
Those places were, to make sure that we could arrest, charge and prosecute people quickly. Not having enough prison places is about as fundamental a failure as you can get. And those people throwing rocks, torching cars, making threats, They didn't just know the system was broken. They were betting on it, gaming it. They thought, they'll never arrest me.
What is he on about?
And if they do,
What
I won't be prosecuted.
is he on
And
about?
if I am, I won't get much of a sentence. They saw the cracks in our society after 14 years of failure, and they exploited them. That's what we've inherited. Not just an economic...
The racist half-wits Keith.
...societal black hole. And
This
that's
isn't...
why we have
They've
to
made a
look at
false
it
association
and do things differently.
between the stabbings in
And
Southport
part of that is being honest with people about the choices that we face.
and the Muslim community.
How tough this will be.
It's... What
Frankly,
he's trying to
things
score
will get worse
points here with this,
before
as though
they
it's
get
like,
better.
you know what they were thinking?
I didn't
And we've
know
asked
they
them
were
all.
early.
They were
I
thinking,
was chief prosecutor for
old
5
Keith won't
years.
get one over on me.
It goes against the
No
grain of
way.
everything I've ever done. But to be blunt, if we hadn't taken that difficult decision immediately, we wouldn't have been able to respond to the riots as we did. And if we don't take tough action across the board, we won't be able to...
He
fix
is the law.
foundations
He
of
invented the law. He invented the
as we
concept of law
I didn't
itself.
want to means test
Yeah.
the
Did you know that?
payment, but it was a choice that we had to make.
He didn't bring in any new
choice to
legislation.
The most vulnerable
Other thugs
children
and
to
looters.
be able to buy homes. They want their grandchildren to get a good education. So we have made
And
that
it was the
difficult
people who
decision
drove him out of town.
to mend the public
Keith's here,
finances
acting like he was
so
our
everyone benefits
knight
in the
in
long
shining
term,
armour,
including
or something like that.
pensions.
And we owe him
That is
a debt of
difficult
gratitude.
trade-off. And there will be
This
more
is
to
probably
come.
his version of what you
I
may know
won't
as
shy
a
away from making unpopular decisions
shit
now
sandwich. When you're
if it's
given
the
an
right
assessment
thing
of
for the
something, start
country
with something
in
good,
the long term.
then something bad, and then
That's
finish
what a
off with something
government
good.
of service
But in this case,
is.
he's just replacing the
This
bread
shouldn't be a country
with more
where people
excrement.
fear walking down their street.
Yeah.
Their TVs showing cars and buildings being set on fire. This shouldn't be a country where the Prime Minister can't guarantee prison places. This shouldn't be a country where people are paying thousands more on their mortgages or waiting months for hospital appointments they desperately need. Where our waters are filled with sewage. Where parents worry that their kids won't get the opportunities that they did. Where nothing seems to work anymore. So when I talk about the inheritance the last government left us, the £22 billion black hole in our finances, that isn't about...
This
a
is
line
the
on a graph.
golden
It's
goose.
about people's lives.
This £22 billion black hole. £22 billion is obviously a lot of money in terms of
They know
relative
their
to the
elections
economy,
cost them the election, but they won't
or
accept the
GDP.
cost that they've inflicted on the country.
It's kind of a different
And they
story.
won't apologise
But the
for what
22
they've
billion
cost
he's
you.
talking about, which would easily
They're
be
just
recoupable from, you know,
about themselves.
so many things. I'm not going to
And this government
get into Europe,
won't always be perfect.
etc. Taxing the super
I promise you
rich
this,
properly will be one of
you
them,
will be at the heart
and
of it,
consistently,
in the forefront
to
of
end
our
the entire
minds,
culture
at the
of
centre of everything
elite
that
tax
we do.
dodging itself,
And that's
in the
why
country.
I wanted to invite you here today.
as well as public
Show
investment.
that decent, hard-working people who make
But
up
his
the
imagination
backbone
doesn't
of
even
this
stretch
country
that far.
belong here. This is a government
We've no other choice,
for you. A garden
he
and
says.
a building that were once used for lockdown parties. Remember the pictures just over there of the wine.
I don't remember those the bad
This garden,
Tories,
this
the
building, are now
policies
back in
that are
your service.
in, you know,
It's not just that the last government
can't discern the
relied on
difference
easy gimmicks
between what
and
we're
bad
doing and what
ideas.
they did. But they were,
But
remember
it's
the bad
been done
guys?
precisely
Or the good
because
guys are here
the
now.
government itself lost its focus on the hopes and ambitions of working people. During those recent riots, I made huge asks of the police and of the criminal justice system. People already stretched to the limit. They knew I was making big asks of them. And I'm not going to apologise for it. But let me tell you this. They delivered. They deserve our gratitude. And that's why I went to Southport, to Lambeth, to Belfast, to thank them personally, to shake the hands of the first responders.
It's almost like he's doing hustings, you know.
They deserve a government that trusts them.
You wouldn't think he was in office at the moment. He sounds like he's still campaigning. He's at the hustings or whatnot. Keith, you're supposed to be telling us how you're fixing the foundations of the company. It says it right there on your lectern with your latest slogan, even though you said a few years ago you're not the party of slogans. This is your umpteenth slogan or relaunch, pledge, series of pledges. What was the last one? Was it the first 5 or 6 steps?
Because we can't go on like this.
Not been any mention of that.
Things will have to be done differently.
And now he's moved on to this.
Hard work to root out 14 years
Keith's latest shill. Roll up to the fixing the foundation stall.
Between now and Christmas, we will carry on as we've started. Action, not words.
How much does it cost, Keith? It costs 1 economy per ride.
To protect taxpayers' money, to take on the blockers by accelerating planning to build homes and boost growth. We will forward this autumn to harness the full potential of AI for growth and for the public good. We'll bring rail service into public ownership, putting passengers first. The biggest levelling up of workers' rights in a generation to give people security, dignity and respect at work. And Great British Energy.
Ogden the Bold, welcome to the chat. Great to see you back here on the live stream this evening. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just a quick reminder to everybody else as well. Please do hit the thumbs up button if you've not done so already. Let's try and get this stream out across to a wider, broader community. Thanks once again for your support, everybody. Solidari-Tea.
We have no other choice given the situation that we're in. Those with the broadest shoulders should bear the heavier burden. And that's why we're cracking down on non-doms. Those who made the mess should have to do their bit to clean it up. And that's why we're strengthening the powers of the water and backing tough fines on the water companies that have let sewage flood our rivers, lakes and seas.
It's very vague sentiments here. Something about non-doms, something about water company regulation, nothing specific. I could see that being, if anything, very tame. When that comes out in the October budget, we'll see. This is probably just hot air from Starmer, won't surprise me. Hedy, welcome to the chat. Great to see you again.
That is not the position we should be in.
Let's just hear a bit more from Keith.
But we have to end the
He is a liar. You're absolutely right.
The easy answer
100%.
That solves nothing. But I also know that we can get through this.
So I'll just pause that there very briefly. That segment he was, what he was saying there is what I went over briefly in my last video. Sorry that's not longer, by the way. I didn't have a lot of time to get that out there, but hope you've seen it. If not, please do check it out. Things can only get shitter. Do check it out if you've not seen it already. But what he was saying about not having any choice, and also he's obviously going to get it from reasonably minded people that there are solutions to this that don't include austerity. And he's giving it the talk to the hand treatment. He's trying to deny having to acknowledge that by rejecting what he calls simple solutions. And the delivery as well is so underwhelming because he's not only... Oh, God. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? Devoid of charisma is something of an understatement. where it comes to Keir Starmer. It's no wonder that he's not used to big crowds. He doesn't appear in public very often, etc. But just the general tone in how he's talking to people, and at the moment, with this particular example, it's akin to, I don't know, like he's telling a kid that the pet's got to be put down, or something like that. But not in a very good way, in a very cold, grey men, literally in grey suits, literally, in this case, with a complete heart of stone. And just the absolute audacity in a can. That was sort of the top of the show. Shout out to the Agitator for that, by the way. Do check out the Agitator at agitate4, that's the number 4, change on Twitter. Never X, always Twitter. I'll die on this hill. That's absolute bollocks, Keith. Absolute tripe. He knows what he's got to do. He doesn't have the political will. He's establishment all the way, beholden to lobbyists. A true conservative, neoliberal shill at heart. Crack on.
Together. Because the riots didn't just betray the sickness, they also revealed the cure, found not in the cynical conflict of populism.
The cure was people rising up
but in the coming together
in communities,
the
mostly.
who got together the morning after, all around the country, with their brooms, their shovels, their trowels, and cleared up their community.
Yeah, and now you're going to be
who we really are.
throwing them under a bus economically. You're going to be shafting the very people.
Who cleaned
And
up our streets,
obviously a lot of
built the
the
walls,
rioting, a lot of the looting
repaired the damage.
happened in
And I
poorer
couldn't help
communities
thinking about the obvious
who've just
parallel.
been through that.
Because
And you're
imagine
gonna
the
give them
pride
both
we will feel
ways.
as a nation, when after the hard work of clearing up the mess is done, we have a country that we have built together, built to last, that belongs to every single one of us, and all of us have a stake in it. Our hard work rewarded a dozen times over, because we'll have an economy that works for everyone. An NHS not just back on its feet, but fit for the future. Streets that everyone feels safe in. No longer dependent on foreign dictators, because we're producing our own clean energy right here. And giving every child, wherever they come from, whatever their background, the chance to go as far as their talents will take them.
He promises, he pledges all of these things.
I won't lose
I
sight of
assure you
what
he
we
will
were
follow through
to do.
on these pledges,
And
these
most
promises,
importantly,
these
I won't lose sight of
steps.
the people that we were elected to do it for.
100%, absolutely, Keith.
This is our
You don't have any previous track record
Let's fix it.
for doing
together.
otherwise.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was dreadful. Why are they clapping? That was awful.
Now I've got a number of
That was
questions
awful.
from
That is
the
actually the
media.
first time I've watched it the whole way through in its entirety. I've seen several excerpts from it. Sorry, I did watch it all the way through once, but now he's going
Yeah.
to take
And I'll start, if I may,
a
with
few questions
Vicky
from the
Young
from the
BBC
press.
News.
I'll
Vicky.
just take one or two of these.
Vicky Young,
Then we'll move
BBC
on.
News. Prime Minister, you say that you want to be open with people, but some will think that you weren't honest during the election campaign about changes to, for example, winter fuel allowance. And many now want to know what the impact of the budget will be.
You're a lying piece of whatever. You're a massive steaming lying turd, aren't you, Keir Starmer? That's my question. Where was she from again? Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention when they said which broadcaster, publication, whatever she's from.
So if you're being honest, can you tell them now what kind of tax rises you're considering?
Well, two or three things Vicky could say about that in the first place.
Should we say what? Deflect and delay? Are these going to be the two things? I wonder what's going on in his cranium there. You can see that was a pretty straight, ice-cold question. And what Reeves is set to reveal in October, we can only dream. Well, we can nightmare about what that might be. So, from where Keith's standing very awkwardly, it's certainly a question he doesn't want to be subjected to. Let's see how he tries to deflect and distract from that one.
We were being honest about the situation before the election. We set out very clearly what we would be doing.
Not a
with
chance.
tax rises. I made it clear on numerous occasions.
Not a chance.
That national insurance, VAT, and tax would not go up the triple for working people.
Get bent, Keith. Honestly, how many clips have I alone shown here on my left eye where they contradicted themselves before and after the election?
It's a £22 billion black hole. And I know the Tories say that's performative. If it's performative, why didn't the OBR know about it? Look at that figure of £5 billion last
This
year.
is performative. Stephen Flynn knew about it.
If that's performative, why didn't the OBR know about it?
From the SNP.
These are basic questions about what we have inherited. As I've just said, I didn't want to have to deal with the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. But we have to fix the NHS. We have to fix...
Yeah, but just the first thing you do is go for pensioners. What is wrong with you?
Pensioners rely on
You
them.
absolutely
It's
callow
so
ghoul.
I'm not going to preempt the budget, but I'm absolutely not going to accept...
He's not going to preempt the budget.
We have
It's his party's budget.
other than dire, a £22 billion black hole. And I'll just add to that what I said about the prisons, because I obviously feel very strongly about this. To have to gauge every day of those disorders, when people are trying to burn down hotels...
He's going...
I have to
Oh,
take
my
prison places
days.
and where we've
I
got
can't believe...
because of the mess that we
He's...
allow. That's disgraceful. No Prime Minister should ever be
Well,
in
she-
that position when trying to deal with...
She
this.
was asking about the budget.
That's what we will fix.
She's
Thank
asking
you,
about the
Vicky.
budget
Anushka,
and tax rises.
Thank you. Anushka Rastan at ITV News. Prime Minister, you talk
What a
about
non-answer.
choices, and there are plenty of things you've chosen to spend money on. You've chosen to give bumper pay rises to doctors, higher than for nurses and teachers, and you've chosen to take these benefits off pensioners. Age UK say 2 million will be pushed into hardship as a result. So what do you say to those pensioners who are not well off, who feel that you are choosing to balance the books on their backs?
Well, so far as the winter fuel allowance is concerned, firstly, I would say it's not a particularly well-designed scheme, frankly, and I think everybody would concede that. I do think it's important that we make sure that the support is there for those pensioners.
I don't think your scheme's particularly well designed either, Keith. Your scheme to burden millions of low-income and retired pensioners with austerity while continuing to go easy on the super wealthy, while continuing to refuse to borrow for public investment, continuing to refuse to nationalise public services, just to name but a few. This is absolutely dreadful. This is toilet.
Deal with. What we know is the last government didn't set a framework for that when they started down the road of the pay review, and they put at least one of them in the cupboard of the buildings over the road and ran away from it. We can't carry on like that. We've got to make difficult choices. Thank you, Anushka. I've got Emily from Channel 4.
Emily with the Channel 4 News. Prime Minister, on prisons, what guarantee can you give to the public that no prisoner who is let out early will go on to harm anyone? Or is the truth that you can't guarantee...
I'm not sorry, I'm not laughing at the question. I was just having a... My left eye was on the chat. And austerity. We need solidarity, not austerity. Austerity. My God, this is like wide open now. It's obviously applicable to anything that ends in ty. We could expand this further. Austerity. Yeah, that's the antithesis of solidarity. It's the nemesis of solidarity. In fact, I believe there's a channel out there, my right eye, and they've got a they've got a blue logo as well, and yeah, that's a common saying amongst their ranks. That's what my internet scouts here on my left eye tell me. So, God, if that actually turned out to be true. Right, let's just hear a little bit more of this. I think I'll just go through this Channel 4 question and then call it a day. Not the end of the stream. Just going to move on to a different story after this question from Channel 4. I'll just reel it back a couple of seconds just so I can.
Thank you, Anushka. I've got Emily from Channel 4.
Emily with the Channel 4 News. Prime Minister, on prisons, what guarantee can you give to the public that no prisoner who is let out early will go on to harm anyone? Or is the truth that you can't guarantee that and that the early release scheme carries with it an undeniable risk?
Well, look, the first thing is, obviously we put in place a framework to ensure that we don't release those who create the greatest risk. That's a basic safeguard that we've had to put in. And I'm not pretending for 1 minute this is a decision I want to make. I spent 5 years prosecuting people and putting them in prison. The idea of releasing people who should be in prison because the prisons are too full and we don't have the places goes against everything I've worked for years. But we've got to face facts. They haven't built the prisons, the last government. They've pretended that you could have longer and longer sentences, send more people to prison, but at the same time that you could veto or choose not to have a prison built near you. They were false choices, and here we are without the prison places that we need. So what are the options available to an incoming government? Let the prisons get so overcrowded that we can't arrest people.
Stick them on a barge.
Would that have worked in the disorder? I don't think so. I was really
For the ultimate of ironies, that the right-wing thugs would end up on Bibi Stockholm. Well, you could write a great opus about that somehow.
Within days. I had to create the conditions for that. Because the alternative, you would be putting a question to me saying, how come all these people in disorder didn't even get arrested? Have not been put before the court.
Normality, prosperity. Yeah, the rich get prosperity.
This is not a decision that I wanted to take. It's not a decision that
Dolores, you're bullshit.
And I can't tell you how shocked I was when I discovered the full extent of what they've done with our prisons. And it's going to take time to fix it.
Austerity, got to double use those bags. Yeah, thanks, politics, Clive.
We've already taken the
Great to see you.
necessary to make sure we can get through the
I'm liking these suggestions. Might do something with this. Well, we'll see. A poll, a trope. Let's keep this going.
But that's the position I was put in, and it's frankly not good enough. Thank you, Emily. Beth.
Oh, sorry, I talked over Starmer's shit answer there. Oh, too bad, Keith. Gotta move on now. It's, yeah, there's about another quarter of an hour of that. I'm not gonna listen to the rest of his deflections and, at this point, fairly predictable answers. Same excuses we got from the Tories. Who could have seen this coming? Is there anyone who could have seen this coming? Oh, dear me. Right, we'll move on in just a moment. I'm going to top up my Solidari-Tea. Okay, austerity. Next, we're going to go over to the screen just to take a quick look at an article. This is news that came out today. Thames Water, who barely scrapes a penny in their lives, poor Thames Water, are saying that they're going to have to put up consumers' bills by 60%, just under 60%, 59, as good as 60, just to keep going. So get your big tissues and your small violins out and show a bit of sympathy for poor old Thames Water here. No, in all seriousness, this is only the beginning. I think we can expect to see more of the same as far as this is concerned. Okay, over on the screen I just had to keep the background music back in. So let's have a look. Just to survive. Just to survive. Sure that nobody else in Britain is living month by month, week by week, in a lot of cases day by day, with survival. So let's see what's happening. Just quickly skim through this. It's a response to a proposed cap from the regulator for water bill rises, Ofwat proposed an average £19 a year ceiling on water bill rises, with a final decision due in December. But the water industry, who certainly have no record of being greedy whatsoever, have argued that the increase is not enough and say there was a risk that companies would not be able to raise enough investment to stop things like sewage spills. That sounds like a veiled threat bordering on... oh, no, not blackmail. But, yeah, a veiled threat to me. Oh, if the line on our profit chart can't keep going up and up and up, then maybe we'll decide that we can't afford to stop sewage spills and people will be bathing in their own effluence even more than they are at the moment. So the regulator, well, they've gone all over the place here. They originally asked them to increase bills by 44%, but the regulator came back. This is going to be, back and forth haggling with 23%. So then they've come back with 59%. I'm not sure they know how haggling, bartering, that kind of thing works. So you say a number, I'll say a number, maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle-ish. No, forget about that. I'll say a number, you say a lower one, and then I'll say an even higher one. So, yeah, it'd probably go something like this. We want 44%, or you can have 23. Oh, right, well then we want 59%. And then even if the regulator went, oh, well, yeah, you can have 44, they'd say, no, we want 112%. Greedy mother. So such a move would take the average annual water bill to £638 per customer by 2030. We're currently around £443. Quite a jump. Quite a jump. So just for example, yeah. And that's Thames Water alone. Other water companies might choose to do the same or ask for the same. demand the same. But he said the money from higher bills would be invested in new infrastructure and improving services. Yeah, sure it has. Sure. Yeah. You got to believe that. That's as bankable a promise as one of Keith's, I tell you. Customers aren't being asked to pay twice, he says, but to make up for years of focus on keeping bills low, he said in response to the regulator. No one will... See, this is the thing. This is the thing. Well, the shareholders won't like this. No one will invest in water. We've got to keep these profits up. Where it's non-nationalised, where it's privatised, this is bound to happen. And it's not just water. I'm sure you know people, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. It's the same with rail, it's the same with electricity, it's the same with any utility. Where rich people can invest in it, those dividends have to keep going up, that line on the graph has to keep going up. Do you think shareholders want more public investment, more investment in infrastructure, etc.? Do you think they want that skimmed off their profits? I'm pretty sure they don't. And again, you know, you lay the foundations of your economy or smaller parts of the economy on fallible or finite commodities, then this is bound to happen. It's the same with fossil fuels. Trying to turn around and go, oh, but we have so much investment in this, just is no excuse whatsoever. I'll tell you what, how about all of the shareholders go and take a dip around the rivers, lakes and streams of this country? I'm pretty sure after they did that they'd be, you know, by the banks throwing up. Sewage spills in England's rivers and the sea by water companies more than doubled just last year. Just last year. Sewage had potentially been released illegally 6,000 times in 2022. 6,000 times. Yeah, revolting. Revolting. That amount of greed. I'm not just talking about what's in all of those bodies of water either when I'm saying revolting. Right, I'll crack on to something else before I get on to issues in Palestine. Do you remember a story a while back? There was a guy who threw that stuff that was on a construction site, a building site, at Nigel Farage as he was walking past. What he actually did was he had a cup, or picked up a cup, and he filled it with wet concrete and he lobbed it at Nigel Farage. So he was immediately arrested, of course. Brought this up, I think, when the story came out. But he's been given a suspended prison sentence. So he's Josh Greeley, who's from Chesterfield. Was filmed throwing objects while Farage was travelling on an open-top bus. Previously pled guilty to a charge of using threatening abuse, insulting words, behaviour with intent to cause fear. Given a 6-week prison sentence, suspended for 12 months. Farage has, you know, tried to milk this as much as possible, really. That's just a quick update on that story. Of course, I went through that, you know, as it happened when it happened. That's just the result of the trial. But just to confirm, at the bottom there, it was planned. Apparently it wasn't something spontaneous. He did actually go to Barnsley from Chesterfield to do that. So he's also ordered to complete 120 hours of unpaid work, 20 rehabilitation activity days, and pay £85, costs and a surcharge of £154. Well, I think Farage was probably hoping that he might get a similar sentence to some of his far-right goons, but there you go. Right, I'm going to move on quickly now, just to finish that one for now. Yeah, I hope this is okay. I'm going to go through a Channel 4 excerpt. Also, some breaking news today. There's been a raid by the IDF into the West Bank, and at least 9 Palestinians have been killed that have been confirmed. Just to quickly let you know, there were raids in 4 Palestinian cities: Jenin, Tulkarm, Nablus and Tubas, killing at least 9 people. And Hamas have said 6 of its fighters died in Jenin. The OHCHR condemned Israeli security forces increasing military response in the occupied territory as well. So that's some of the latest. You know, at the moment, the supposed first phase of exchanges of fire between Lebanon and Israel finished just a couple of days ago, and it's as though they're so bloodthirsty, they're so hungry for war that they can't just go without it. So now they decide to attack the West Bank again as well. Perpetual war, that's all they want. So let's go through this Channel 4 segment. I hope this is okay, fingers crossed for copyright, whatever. If you're watching back on a replay and it's not here, sorry, I've had to trim it out. Had a couple of issues with that kind of thing recently, but without further ado, by the way, there will be a small amount of ado. Just very quickly want to say there's a few interviews with Zionist Israeli occupiers here, and a few things that they say might get you quite agitated, shall we say. I couldn't believe what I was hearing when I saw these clips at first myself. So here we go, just to warn you about that. I'll talk more about that as we go through.
Welcome to the occupied West Bank. We're in the Palestinian village of Beita. The tear gas has begun unusually early today. These scenes have become a weekly ritual. Palestinians holding a small demonstration after Friday prayers. Israeli soldiers firing tear gas down at them.
Palestinians have been protesting like this for years and years, but if anything, the situation for them on the ground is only getting more and more difficult. The Israeli army becoming more and more uncompromising, particularly since October the 7th.
At times, the Israelis shoot live bullets. More than a dozen people have been killed around Beta in the past few years, since demonstrations against a new nearby Israeli settlement began.
And the settlers here, our land. And every Friday we come here just to pray.
It's actually quite a bold thing at the moment to be wearing a full press vest. There's been 161, I think it is, the latest number of journalists who have been killed, deliberately targeted, because Israel don't want the truth getting out to the wider world. Just wanted to point that out. He's a target. That's like a target on his back. Essentially, a lot of journalists are choosing not to wear those anymore.
We're on our way now to Eviatar, which is one of the newest ones.
Hey people, sorry about that. Just had a bit of buffering on the broadcast software. That's a problem at my end, not your end. I just paused it here. We'll carry on. Apologies.
Bezalel Smotrich, himself a settler, is spearheading efforts to fully annex the West Bank. For the settler, claiming a Jewish ancestral and spiritual homeland and protecting it.
At the moment we're 15, it will be 20 by the end of the summer.
Malkiel is Eviatar's head of security.
But the settlements that you're building here, they make a Palestinian state, a two-state solution, impossible practically. But I guess that's part of the aim.
Well,
right?
I'll ask you if you have a Palestinian state here, who will protect Tel Aviv from being rocketed?
Well, the army.
Apparently,
the army.
The army?
That is such a ridiculous... I mean, I'll go on to talk about how these people are so indoctrinated, how they are essentially sociopaths, psychopaths even. This argument. So, you occupy, you terrorise and occupy a country that you're occupying illegally, and you don't expect any retaliation whatsoever. And then when there is retaliation, you double down and go further into Palestine, killing more and more people as you do so. And then your excuse for that is that if you didn't do that, who would stop people from attacking the IDF? Is that what he's saying? That is so twisted, this cowboy Zionist here. And there's more to come. This is just the first example. But the worst part is, they genuinely believe this. They genuinely believe that that is a valid reason, that that's a valid excuse, and that's one of the terrifying things about it, is that obviously Netanyahu is at the top of the chain. Hypothetically speaking, if he were arrested by the ICC and brought before the International Court of Justice, brought before the United Nations and other international bodies, then that's just... It's not like cutting off the head of the snake. Although it would be, that would be a great thing. That would be certainly justified. It's the ideology itself of Zionism that needs to be done away with. And this is an ideology that's existed for multiple generations. And perhaps this is what he was brought up to believe. The same way that if he does have children, will bring them up under the same ideology. And there's someone else coming up in another interview, in a later part of this, who has her children with her in the background, and no doubt she's filling these kids' heads up with the same crap, the same ideological, fanatical, far-right, racist lies, based on pointing at a map and saying something, something, something thousands of years ago. It's an insult to both morality and intelligence. Definitely. Let's go on.
Well, as long as we hear the army here, if you take the Palestinians seriously and you take the Hamas seriously and you hear what they're saying, they're talking about from the river to the sea.
That's effectively your slogan, from the river to the sea should be all Israel.
Well, it was. It was much more, actually.
Around 700,000 settlers now live in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, most in large enclaves like this. The West Bank was seized by Israel in the 1967 war. Internationally, it's all considered to be Palestinian land, key to any future Palestinian state. Since the 1990s, more urban areas have been partially controlled by the Palestinian Authority, the rest by the Israeli military.
We know that these
the territory is now
far-right Zionists don't believe in a two-state solution. They believe in the complete eradication of Palestine,
current hardline government, they've seen unprecedented growth,
which is as definitive. You know, how else could you better define an ethnic cleansing or an occupation and genocide?
This was an attack earlier this month where homes and cars were set alight and one man killed. But the settlers see themselves as the victims. Stabbing and shooting attacks by Palestinians had been growing more frequent even before October the 7th. And with the occupation entrenched and deadly Israeli army raids ramping up, grassroots support in the West Bank for Hamas is soaring.
There's no other rhetoric or discourse coming either from Israel, from the US, from the UK, from Europe, that will actually push a solution to the conflict here. So at the end, even if you're not radical or you're moderate, resistance comes as that solution. And that's why Hamas now has a lot of popularity in the West Bank.
And the growing support for Hamas, Israelis would see that as a major security concern.
Again, that's the problem with Israel, is that it creates the problem and then, you know, accuses you of supporting Hamas. Hamas is just a new variant of an old tradition in Palestine.
This is so deluded, isn't it? It really is insane in the membrane. You're right there, Octo. Kit Gilmore, welcome. Great to see you again. Yeah, go back and check out Starmer after you joined us live. For anyone else who's just joined us as well, please do hit the thumbs up button. Share us across your social media. Let's try and hit more people with the truth.
We're in a small tent site not far from the border with Gaza. It might look like a bohemian summer camp, complete with family-friendly activities. But this is an unabashed radical fringe, backed ideologically by senior far-right members of government, that believes Gaza is Jewish land. On Yosef's neck...
You're going to see the lady I was referring to a moment ago coming up here as well. Look at those tattoos.
Represents an opportunity to take it over.
אני ישנתי בלילה בלי סק"ש ולא בתוך אוהל. תנאי שטח. אנחנו מבינים שעם כל החום והזבובים והכל, כשניכנס לעזה, בעזרת השם, יהיה הרבה יותר קשה מבחינת תנאי השטח. אז פה זה רק הכנה קטנה.
In the camp, the orange colour of the movement flies high. Some soldiers fighting in Gaza have posted photos online with the flag too, though Israel's leadership insists there's no prospect of re-establishing the settlements. Ariel believes it will happen and hopes to be among...
Just before we go on to this, I'm, struggling to find the words, the depths of this absolute brainwashing. I guess is one I've not used. I don't think I've used brainwashing yet tonight. Or cultish. But yeah, just before And we do go on to listen to her, what she says, and I, for one, can't believe it. Just want to go over this issue of how can I best put it? Okay, so as they were just saying there when I paused it, they say that there's no way that they can undo the settlements, give the Palestinians in the West Bank or in Gaza as well. This also applies. They can't give them the land back. Not only does this go against this evil doctrine, but they've already sold the land. The adverts are already out there on the internet in pro-Zionist literature, magazines, etc. Advertising property, occupied property. They were already taking deposits, they're already taking money for it. There are still thousands of people buried underneath the rubble. But don't let that put you off. So let's move on to what this lady's got to say, of course. She sounds genuinely like she's from the Middle East with a American accent. Which is just case in point for what I was just talking about. Sorry, that's what that relates to. It beggars belief. It beggars belief. How can anyone morally defend making such a purchase? Would you want to live on land that you knew that had happened to? And obviously there are other examples. I mean, America for one, for example. Yes, with what happened to Native Americans. But would you really want to own a house when you knew what had happened to get you that house there? And the fact that where your very house stands might be on where there were once dead women and children. No thanks. But not for these wackos. Honestly, listen to this.
It's the first to move to Gaza. She came to Israel 7 years ago from Texas.
The idea of you coming from America to here, settling in potentially in Gaza, kicking Palestinians out, a lot of people would see that as settler colonialism.
It's not really colonialism, it's a return. My grandparents were kicked out of Israel by Arabs who were trying to establish a Palestinian state, and they had to leave for their survival, and I'm just coming back and fulfilling their dream.
Have you got access to any information about post-World War II history, madam? Any whatsoever? Any whatsoever? So she's referring to her grandparents who were kicked out. You've got to think about this in terms of timescale. Let's say that's probably even sometime after the Second World War. So, has she ever seen a map of Palestine from 1945, for example? And then seen how it was carved up by foreign nations, including the UK, yeah, the Balfour Agreement, etc. In collaboration with the US, other nations, to stand there together and point at maps. And then expects to get sympathy that a grandfather got his arse handed to him when he tried to illegally settle in another country. Unbelievable.
That would be the first thing. The second thing is, I think that, and I know this is a minority view, I think colonial...
I know this is a minority view. I know this is a minority view. Well, fortunately, there are good people in this world. We've seen a lot of support for Palestine. Do you ever care to ask yourself why your view is a minority view? and why this is so reprehensible to the majority of other people. Does that even cross your mind? You can have a think about that while you're scrolling over some historical maps. The whole ideology itself isn't built on anything solid, and I won't go into the finer details of that. But these people believe in this just as much as they believe that day will follow night. Just having a look at the chat here. It is sick, depraved, demonic. These are the proper adjectives to be used. Absolutely despicable. You're right there, Kit. Absolutely. Keep calling out the truth, people.
Gets a bad rap. Like, genocide is bad, but colonizing places that are genocidal and they have bad ideology, it's good to come in and correct their views.
Wow! 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 I mean, oh, you
gotta be fucking kidding.
Oh. See, our ideology, our twisted, that's the good one. Theirs is the bad one. Oh no. She's essentially trying to say, well, there's good genocides, you know. No way. You've got to be absolutely kidding. People like this are real. They are out there. Some of them are heads of nuclear states as well. Cough, cough.
What do you think should happen to the people who are already in Gaza?
So I think that there's a couple of possibilities. The one that I think is the most realistic is we got to ask other countries for help. I know that Spain was willing to take a couple of million. I know Russia said they would take a couple of thousand.
Why don't you sod off to Spain? Why don't you sod off to any of these countries who you're thinking should take, what, the entire population of the West Bank and Gaza and everywhere else in Palestine? Why don't you roll up at an airport in Spain and declare that you've decided that this is your rightful home? And go and kick everybody out of the villas. Give it a go. Give it a go. Just let me know when you're doing it, because I wouldn't want to miss out on seeing that one. That's for sure. Not any attempt at it.
To a lot of people, that would sound like you're advocating for ethnic cleansing.
Sounds like she's bonkers.
Don't think so, because Palestinian isn't an ethnicity, it's an ideology, and it's an ideology that says that they want Jews dead, and so we want them as far away from Jews as possible.
The would-be settlers take us to the Erez crossing. It used to be the gateway into Gaza. The area has been closed off by Israeli soldiers, but the group is waved through.
Somebody needs to get out the sock puppets and explain to her once again the difference between a state and a religion. That one always comes up time and time again. And it's a, you know, explain it to them like they're 5 situation. Wow. Wow. But like I said, the people at the top, like Netanyahu, all of his top military, yeah, we need to see justice brought to them. We need to see them locked up. But there's a much bigger job ahead of us. If we can achieve a ceasefire, if we can achieve peace, there's still rebuilding to be done. But that ideology, unfortunately, will still exist in a minority of people. And It's got to be done away with.
They've planted 2 small lemon trees here as symbols of their claims over this land. Just saplings, but the settlers have seen how over the years their efforts bear fruit.
Or is that perhaps also to rub it in the faces of starving Palestinians who don't even have access to fresh water? I'm sure you've seen clips yourself of Palestinians, even children, running up to drains, water at the side of the road, even water that's running out of a broken down vehicle, just to purse the lips, just to try and quench the thirst. And so many diseases are coming back with it as well. And in the meantime, they continue to block the aid trucks getting through with the food, with the water, with the medicine. Ghoulish. Ghoulish. So as I was just saying, things have to be done, and I do know one man who's got a couple of ideas. Let's have a look at this clip. I'm sure this fella needs no introduction here, as we go into a few other ways where we can start to make progress.
Well, you can't get much stronger than the International Court of Justice saying what's going on are acts of genocide against the Palestinian people. You would have thought a country that has had that judgment against it would get a few sanctions imposed on it, wouldn't you? Isn't that kind of how it works? Isn't that sort of normal? And then the International Criminal Court judgment that's been made against Netanyahu and others, which the British government sort of eventually came around to saying it would accept the judgment of the ICC. Actually, the British government has no choice. It has no choice whatsoever. I was in Parliament when we joined the International Criminal Court, when we signed up to the Rome Statute.
He's absolutely bang on. And there was obviously this back and forth about whether the UK would accept the ICC's ruling, but also recently David Lammy got given the cold shoulder by Netanyahu when eventually they had to concede that yes, the UK government doesn't outrank the International Criminal Court or the International Court of Justice and abide by their rulings, being as members. But that just shows the sheer hubris amongst Zionists, as well as those who are under the influence of lobbies, that they think that there can be a back and forth, that they think that they can just ignore the rulings. This is the UK that we're talking about. This isn't some diamond dictator in a developing African nation, for example, in a third world country. This is the UK that this is happening in. Of course, the rules apply to us, just as they apply to any other country who signed up. And Corbyn was there himself. You just heard him say it. But guess who didn't want to join the ICC? Jeremy's going to tell you.
Was a move by various, mainly Tory MPs, to try and exempt Britain from various parts of it, particularly the role of the military, but none of that was carried, and the thing went through in its entirety. Britain is signed up to the International Criminal Court. We are bound by its judgments. Its arrest warrants have to be carried out. It's an obligation. And so the idea that the British government sort of grandly said eventually they'd accept the judgment and stop challenging it, well, they did drop the challenge, good, and that was only because of a lot of pressure from a lot of people around the country. But again, if there's an arrest warrant out for the Prime Minister of a country, you'd have thought there would be at least a reconfiguration of diplomatic relations with that country, rather than saying we're going to carry on as normal, including the supply of weapons, overflying and allowing RAF Austerity to be used as a staging point in the delivery of weapons to Israel. So our demands on the British government are quite simply this: abide by international law now.
Now that is a speech. That's a proper speech. You know, think about how many years we've missed out on that kind of thing. You know, compared to Keith earlier on, there's just, well, there is no comparison. Basically, there is no comparison. These are the sort of things that we need to be hearing, especially from our current leader. And well said there. Well said, Jeremy. At least as a baseline, you know, can we expect our country to abide by international law? I know that we've just had a government that thinks that you can break international law in a limited and specific way. But if this can be gotten away with, then what is the point of regulation? What is the point of international law in the first place? And there's no more finer example than what's happening in Palestine at the moment. Yes, well done. Round of applause. Take a bow, Corbyn. And of course, a big thing that we could do, obviously we're not the heads of international bodies, but people can come together, as there have been, in protest and demonstration as part of BDS, boycott, divest and sanction. And one example of boycott that was brought to my attention recently was this. And it's quite unbelievable. I don't know if you've seen a clip of this going around in social media recently. Or if you're familiar with what it's all about. So Sainsbury's supermarket have been selling potatoes. There's nothing particularly unusual about that. It is a supermarket after all. However, this relates to a particular branch of Sainsbury's in Belfast, in Ireland, Northern Ireland. Very important to distinguish there. We won't get into all that, but in a country, the UK and Ireland are both particularly known for their farming, their potato farming. Producing quite a lot on account of the geography, topography and the climate here where we live, although we'll go on to climate issues another time and how that's affecting farming, but generally pretty good at producing potatoes. But if you go into Sainsbury's, not just this branch of Sainsbury's in Belfast, I dare say other branches in Northern and the Republic of Ireland, perhaps, if they do have them in the Republic, you'll no doubt find the same. Potatoes imported from Israel. Yes, that's right. From halfway across the world. It's going to take days to reach consumers, or even supermarket shelves over here in the UK or in Ireland. And people are outraged. People are outraged, and there's been a demonstration. So this is it. Well done to these people. But can you believe that one? Can you believe that one? In a country that produces so many potatoes, we're importing them from halfway across the world. Stop the spuds. Yes, Kit. So let's see what they did, because obviously people are still going into Sainsbury's completely unaware of this. So a group of protesters went down there to point this out. Well, let's take a look. Let's see what's happening.
Shopping. While you're shopping.
We are BDS Belfast, and we are here to remove all the Israeli products off the shelves in Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's is funding genocide. Every time you buy something that has Israel, made in Israel, you're funding genocide. We are constantly taking these products off the shelves and they are constantly being put back on again. It is a disgrace. And to make matters worse, not that you can make it worse, Sainsbury's is actually importing potatoes from Israel to Ireland. They are bringing Israeli potatoes to this store and selling them. It is not like we don't have a whole country full of potatoes. If that is not a finger up for us, what is? Thank you. Free Palestine.
Bombs are dropping. Free Palestine, boycott Israel.
Absolutely. Can we get some Palestine flags thrown up in the chat, whether it's the membership static emoji or just the general flags? I don't mind in either case. Let's have a show of solidarity here, people. And did you see all the different products as well? It wasn't just potatoes, of course, a lot of very well-known brands there. We've got to come down on them all. Starbucks are in trouble, are in a bit of hot water. They've seen a downturn in profits. It works. BDS works. Boycotts work. Divestments work. Sanctions work. This is what we need. And we need to call out these big companies when they're assisting, financing a country's economy that is doing the things that Israel's been doing, of course. Oh, thanks, people. Great to see those Palestine flags going up. Hev, nice to see you back as well. Hope you're having a grand evening. Thanks for joining us with a cup of Solidari-Tea. Solidari-Tea is, goodness no, Solidari-Tea with Palestine. Yeah, Israeli products need booting out of our shelves, out of our supermarkets. Fortunately, even people from within that, not the Zionist system, but from within Israel are speaking out as well. This is a recent brave speech from some, I hope I've got the name right here, I think it's Lily Greenberg Call. And this is an impressive speech as well. Just a final reminder: check out products, whatever it is you're buying, because a lot of big companies are involved in this. Just have a quick look on the back. Just have a quick look on the back and make sure that you're not buying anything that comes from Israel, and also encourage others to do the same.
I am a Jewish American. I was a Kamala staffer, and until May 15th, I was an appointee in the Biden-Harris administration, and I resigned in protest of the president's unconditional support for Israel's assault on Gaza. I resigned because for 10 months I watched the president who was my boss, who I was supposed to represent, this administration that I was supposed to serve the American, serve the American people through this administration. I watched the president make my community the face of this war machine. I watched him use our safety and abuse the death of my friends on October 7th.
So even Biden's staffers, of course, Biden's still being the president of USA for now, are outraged, obviously, at what Zionism is trying to do. It's trying to besmirk Judaism. Essentially, it's obviously not a part of the religion, which is fundamentally peaceful. And we've seen huge Jewish blocs in protests and marches around the world. Seen Jewish communities come and speak out on these atrocities as well. More people within the system. Obviously, America very complicit in this with funding and arms sales. More people from inside do have to call it out. And well done to her. You know, she wants to be on the right side of history. And she's speaking the truth to power. Also, speaking of speaking the truth to power, just seen the latest one pop up. Octo with this the T suffix. Yeah. Stupidity. There's certainly a lot of voters who are drinking stupidity. That's for sure. Where was I? Yes, truth to power. The media, of course, have a role in this. The kind of language that they use, what they choose to talk about, what they don't mention as well, how things are mislabeled, misrepresented. But Mariam Baghouti, who appeared in a BBC interview recently, wasn't having any of it and proceeded to call out the horse live on air. Let's take a look at that.
But we have heard some Israeli politicians being vocal in their opposition to what's going on. How unusual is it to hear that sort of criticism?
Policymakers essentially enforcing a genocide just a couple of dozen kilometers west of the West Bank, and at the same time saying, oh, this is abhorrent, or we condemn this act. And again, you need to remember that these settlers are part of the Israeli system, that the Israeli government has placed them illegally in the West Bank as part of the annexation. Now, the condemnation from Israeli policymakers comes from the strategy within the Israeli military, and that is called perception shaping. And it is a policy that they enforce in order to maintain a image of being a moral army, or being a regime that values human life and values legal regulation.
I just must go back to a word that you used a moment ago. It is a fact that many international members of the international community regard these settlements as illegal, but you just used the word genocide. Is that in relation to what's happening in the West Bank? Are you really using that word?
So I'm speaking about the genocide that is happening in Gaza. Now, what is happening in Palestine, and you need to remember, Gaza is not a separate entity from Palestine, which seems to be the trend in media. Israel is enforcing spatiocide, and that includes the annexation of territory and the depopulation of villages. In the West Bank, we have witnessed an unprecedented rate of Israeli settler annexation of Palestinian lands and actual depopulation.
Impartiality, yes. Octo, yes. You've been coming out with some zingers tonight. Absolutely. Let's keep this going. Yeah. Super tiny. I like a bit of normality as well. I'll try to think what to do this. Can keep this going with a poll. I want to hear more suggestions. Do me a favour, people. If you want to put your T suffixed puns in the comments as well, perhaps we can keep it going there as well. So after the I'll do it now if you like. Just stick a few in there, and we'll see if we can keep this tea thing going. More tea the merrier. Let's drink up. Cheers.
Of towns and areas within the West Bank. So that does fall within the overall Israeli strategy of ethnic cleansing. And if that word makes you uncomfortable, I recommend that you go and actually see what ethnic cleansing means, because Israel has de facto implemented every part of what that phrase entails.
Well, of course,
so yes, I do place it in that same category.
Well, of course, Israel would deny that completely, and even members of the international community would challenge some of what you've just said. What is the mood? What is the anticipation, though, in the West Bank of what might happen next, and how is the temperature lowered? Just briefly, if you would.
Of course, Israel would refute that in parts of the international community. Like I said, this is part of Israel's perception shaping strategy.
Can we move on to the question? The question. Sorry, Mariam Baghouti. My question is, what's the anticipation in the West Bank of what might?
I'm going to throw another one in there while we're at it. Serendipity. Serendipity. I don't know. Oh, God. Should have started making a list about, I don't know, at least 45 minutes ago. Yeah, sorry for interrupting the clips. Do keep this going. Morality. Yeah, that's another one. Insanity. Oh, nice one. Politics, Clive. Super tiny. Let's keep it going. Nice one, Kit.
Happen next, and what needs to happen to bring the temperature down?
Right. So the anticipation in the West Bank is part of how you just responded to me. So Palestinians are expecting, especially international media correspondents, to devalue what is happening here and semi-legitimize it.
I didn't do that at all. I'm sorry, Mariam Baghouti, I did not do that at all. I did not do that at all. I'm asking you to tell me what the anticipation.
Okay, about the clip. So someone, what's she called? This host. It's not quite coming to me. 1 second. Right. Anyway, I'll just get on to what I'm going to say anyway. Can someone literally tell her what the ICC and the ICJ have said? All that Mariam is pointing out there are the same kind of words that those bodies have used to describe Israel, and you want to sit there and question that on the BBC. And say, oh, maybe you're going a bit far by calling a spade, you know. But they've all got their earwigs now. Their earpieces. And they're told when to interrupt. That wasn't an instinctive journalistic move there. That's the sort of thing that goes off in their ear. Oh, you said that word, we can't have that. They've got, lists of words they don't want people to say, for example. The syntax, the language is always, very precise, even when they're interviewing somebody.
I'm asking you to tell me what the mood is and the anticipation is of Palestinians in the West Bank. That isn't devaluing anything that has happened at all. And we have just reported that the British Foreign Secretary has condemned the settler violence. Please answer my question.
As I said, perception shaping. You can go back to this interview and see how you devalued it. As in for what is the situation in the West Bank, Palestinians are frightened. They are terribly frightened. You have a population that has gone rogue. This is a de facto rogue regime that has psychopathic tendencies. And at the same time, there is a disregard to the fact that Palestinians are facing this completely unprotected. While on the one hand, you're having settlers being armed with assault rifles, M16s, Israeli military is using drone warfare of the Hermes 450 specifically from Elbit Systems within the UK.
Super Tiny, thanks for joining me. Hope you have a good evening. You can catch up with the rest on a replay, of course. Thanks for being with us this evening. Sleep well.
Against Palestinians, we have had nearly 700 Palestinians killed in the last 10 months. So in terms of anticipation, it hinges on what the international community will allow to persist, notwithstanding Israeli comments, notwithstanding your coverage of who condemned what, but in practice, in actual applied practice.
Basically, get real is what she's saying there. Get real. because what a broadcaster, what the media does that doesn't tell the truth isn't real. It's a distortion of the truth, and therefore a distortion of reality. And they can't just get real and call things by what they are. I've brought up before the difference between people dying and people being killed, depending on who they're reporting about, and they so often neglect to mention the country who's committing whatever act they're reporting on in the headline, in the article title. Several examples of this. Just want to quickly let's go back a few seconds there. That's what she was saying.
In terms of anticipation, of the Hermes 450 specifically from Elbit Systems within the UK.
That's another thing. That's another thing that they're not hearing enough about. The manufacturing that is happening in our country. Not too far away, in one case, from where this live stream's being brought to you from tonight. Elbit Systems. And they're being shut down. I reported recently that 5 protesters who occupied one of the factories for weapons parts, they were sentenced to between 12 and 16 months. These are the sort of things that the mainstream media seems to be turning a blind eye to, but here on my left eye, we're going to call things as we see them.
Against Palestinians, we have had nearly 700 Palestinians killed in the last 10 months. So in terms of anticipation, it hinges on what the international community will allow to persist, notwithstanding Israeli comments, notwithstanding your coverage of who condemned what, but in practice, in actual live practice.
Mariam Barghouti, thank you very much for talking to us here on BBC News.
Absolutely, preach. Well said there, Mariam. Well said. Fantastic. Yeah. All these T suffixes are coming in. Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It's great. It's great. Yeah, there's so many of them. There's almost a bounty. Full amount of them. Oh. County. Yeah, that's another one. That's another one. Oh. Can't believe I tried to get away with that bountiful one there.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Yeah, maybe I was pushing that out a bit too far. All right, but that was more like it, and I think anyone who, you know, goes on to mainstream media shouldn't be overwhelmed by the event, by the, you know, number of potential viewers, and just absolutely call it like it is, not be coerced by whoever's presenting, hosting, interviewing, whatever. Well done, Mariam Barghouti there. Music. Whoops. Alright, start again. Okay, so I have just realised, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, apologies earlier on in the stream, forgot to do the members scroll at the top. I'm going to be doing that now as I start to bring this stream to a close, but please do hang around, could be raiding into another channel, and please do stick with us right to the end here on my left eye. So massive shout out to all of the members, whether you joined recently or renewed memberships. Great way of showing solidarity, and you can join this list of wonderful people for just 99 pence if you're not a member already. There's exclusive content, early viewings, just part of the perks. Please do check that out, hit the join button underneath this stream. Shout out again to those who bought gift memberships recently, and also to Helena at No Justice for recent raids into the channel, speaking of redirects or raids, whatever you want to call them. So do hang around. Thanks for sticking with me here. Wonderful members, wonderful chatters. I'm enjoying this stream tonight. Not that I don't always enjoy them, but this one's been quite a long Brews at 10, and I've enjoyed every second of it. Thanks a lot for sticking around. I won't be doing another Brews at 10 tomorrow, but I believe I'll be back with you on Friday. Then after that, I've got, of course, a Sunday live stream. Keep an eye out for that. Some of you have mentioned as well you're not getting notifications despite hitting the bell there. So I'll try and continue to post on Twitter with reminders of upcoming content and streams, as well as the YouTube community page. If you've not got us on Twitter yet, please check us out. It's at My Left Eye UK. Oh, Dolores, this stream was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was. Yeah, hit those in the comments as well. Please, people. That'd be a big help on the algorithm to appease the YouTube gods. And it's, yeah, been great banter in the chat tonight as well. Absolutely. Could I be so British as to call it top bants? Awesome stuff. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to leave that there for tonight. Just a quick look at who might be still live. I know that Kevin Logan was when I came on. Let's just check if he's still on. Or Helena, I know that she was on earlier. In fact, I know that because I was in the chat for a little bit. Let's have a quick scan. If you know of anyone else who might be live at the moment, let me know. I'll try and look them up. Okay, it doesn't look like Helena or Kev are live, but if you aren't familiar with them, please do check them out. So that's Kevin Logan, at Kevin Logan, I think it just is. And Helena's No Justice channel is No Justice. Oh, what's the what's the letters afterwards? Spare me 1 second. Probably already said it in the chat. Forget the orders of the letters. So yeah, it's at No Justice MTG, of course. Please do check them out. Alright, so hopefully I'll be back with you on Friday, but until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks a lot for being with me here on the Brews at 10. And enjoy the rest of your Solidarity. Be seeing you soon, people. Good night.
Everyone's got it. Now you can got it too. The fucking audacity, now in a can.